What do you do when you're in the market for a used business class laptop on a budget? And a T480 is too old, expensive, and out of date, but you're not willing to go with a T14 Gen 1 through 4 because it doesn't have the upgradability that you want it to have. Honestly, you start looking for another laptop in another brand. Now, before I go any further, I wanted to call out this Outdoor Edge knife. It is the Razer EDC Lite. This is a really interesting design of a knife. I go through knives kind of quick. I destroy the blades on them pretty quickly, and I'm okay at sharpening, but not great. One thing I really like about this is the whole blade assembly is actually replaceable. And so you can take off a blade just like you would with a utility knife and replace it with a whole new knife, which is really nice if you are like me and are pretty hard on your knives. I call this out because I'm going to put a link to this in the video description. It is an affiliate link. If you're interested in a new knife, use my link and support my channel. Not sponsored in any way, shape, or form. I just really like this knife. The HP Elitebook series has had a long line of hits. Some of my favorite laptops, like my recently sold 2570p, have been Elitebooks or ZBooks, which follow a very similar design process. They're solidly built, they have upgradability, repairability, and quite a bit of community support. I recently sold some of my older Thinkpads and was looking for something to replace them that would be a solid long-term laptop that would have the performance I need, but also represent a good platform for testing and comparisons to other systems. In my research, I came across the HP Elitebook 840 series. It comes at a price that is pretty favorable. I picked up this Gen 8 for just over $150 after taxes and shipping. And I wasn't really starved for choices in that $150 to $175 price point. Plenty of great options at the time I'm recording this on eBay. What attracted me to this over, say, a Dell of the same generation, which my work laptop is the same generation CPU in a Dell Latitude, is actually a number of things. One is that this still has a track point right here in the keyboard. If you're coming from a ThinkPad, it's almost a requirement on your laptop. I type a lot, and I'm pretty used to using the track point on my ThinkPad when I'm writing scripts, emails, responding to teams, and arguing with people on Reddit, which I'm usually right, by the way. I also hoped that the keyboard would be better, along with the screen, trackpad, and general feeling of build quality to the laptop compared to the overly cheap-feeling Dell that I'm very used to. Another thing that attracted me to this system over, say, a T14 or a P14S Gen 1 through 4 is the price and upgrade possibilities. Price-wise, the T14/P14S Gen 2 that I've had in the past have gone up a little bit in price or have also flatlined. The T480s are way too expensive for what they are, and the T14 Gen 3s and 4s are still depreciating. They're a bit on the pricey side. And we'll go over upgradability later, but it's more upgradable than those. Condition-wise, I'm very happy with this machine. It is overall in very clean. There's a little bit of scuff here, no dents, no marks or engravings or anything. A little dirty just because I have been using it quite a bit. It feels like it was one that was either not used and just sat on a shelf as a spare, or used plugged into a dock. The only signs of use the keys have are from me. The thermal paste looked much fresher than I'm used to on systems of this vintage, while still looking original to the system. That lends me to think that this was bought but never put into production. Overall, I'm very happy with the laptop, especially considering the price I paid for it, which did include the charger. Now, there are a few things that I'm not a huge fan of on this laptop. We'll go into general repairability of the laptop a little bit later, but first and foremost, the keyboard is not replaceable, at least not in a way that most end users would feel comfortable tackling. You basically have to take the entire laptop apart, then cut off the posts that were used to weld the keyboard into place, remove the old keyboard, install the new one, remelt new plastic onto those posts. For the price of the laptop, unless you're willing to tackle the job yourself, you're not going to find someone who is willing to do it for less than just the cost of replacing the laptop. So if you plan on getting one of these, make sure that the keyboard is good from day one. Even if the keyboard was just screwed in or clipped into place versus the plastic welding, that would be a big change for me. Changing the keyboard would then be annoying but doable. Having to cut and remelt plastic puts it outside the comfort zone for a lot of people. We'll go over ports more specifically, but it is missing the Ethernet port. I know that Wi-Fi is pretty awesome these days, and I almost never plug into an Ethernet jack. But sometimes, especially at work, where the Wi-Fi can be really iffy in certain areas, if this was my work-issued laptop, I would also need to be issued an RJ45 dongle. Our data center basically has zero Wi-Fi coverage, and there are a few floors and conference rooms where the Wi-Fi does not work well, making any video conference calls stuttery or jittery, and having a hardline Ethernet is required for a decent experience. The sound from the speakers is interesting. It has these fancy Bang & Olufsen speakers with these triangle grills. But that's just a marketing gimmick, really. They're still laptop speakers, but with extra processing on them. They're not good or bad. They're just different from what I'm used to. Go ahead and flip it over. Removing the bottom cover is pretty easy. We'll go over that here later when I show the full internals. But putting it back on is not. Maybe mine is tweaked from just sitting years of storage, but I tried several times, and along the front edge here is not fully engaged, like right there and there, with the clips. Fortunately, it doesn't seem to have a big effect on how solid the laptop feels, but is something to keep in mind. The 5 screws are all captive, and I didn't feel like I was going to break any clips taking it apart. It's just the process of getting it back on that is a pain. If anybody has one of these and has a tip on how to get it back on correctly, I would appreciate it. The screen is average. At 250 nits, I would like for it to be a bit brighter. I'm old, and so are my eyes. Color accuracy is average at 45% NTSC. It's perfectly acceptable for productivity work and even gaming, but you wouldn't want to rely on it for something like photo editing. And honestly, that is the extent of my real issues with the machine. It's a pretty short list, one of which is me once again saying that my P1 has the best laptop speakers I've ever heard. Next on my list is not really a complaint about the computer, but about the information on the laptop. Anyone who's researched a Thinkpad is familiar with the PSREFs, or Product Specification Reference Pages. They have the answers to just about any question you may have on a specific model, and they still have ones going back over 15 years. A quick Google search will get you the one you need. In doing research on a laptop, the PSREFs have proven to be invaluable, whereas specific information I was looking for on this HP has been harder to track down. Minimal information on configurations and available options, and worse yet, a bunch of 404 page errors. When I first got this laptop, I was able to look up the build specs, but now when I try, I just get an error page. Lenovo Vantage is also an invaluable piece of software that gives you so much information about your system without having to boot into BIOS, and allows you to do driver and firmware updates without having to touch the website. The overall design of this system is clean. Nothing flashy, no RGB disco lights. It's not something you would buy to show off with, but it's also not something that you would be embarrassed taking to meetings with your clients or your boss's boss. I like the triangle design for the speaker grills, a little bit of embellishment without being over the top. It's unique without being loud. I do worry about the aluminum case showing scratches, as it already has a few scratches on it. Performance is exactly what you expect out of an 11th Gen Core i5. The Iris graphics are a big step above the old UHD graphics of previous generations. Otherwise, it's adequate. It's perfect all-around performance for someone who has a wide range of workloads. Other than the missing Ethernet port, we have two USB-A's, headphone microphone jack. On the right side, we have an HDMI and two USB-C Thunderbolt 4 ports, and we have a SIM card tray, which I would have liked to have been an SD card reader as well. On the left side, we also have the smart card reader, which is something that I don't feel like very many individuals use, that it's mostly for businesses. I think it's an acceptable level of ports, falling short of the only two that are more personal preference than requirements, the SD card reader and the RJ45 port. Gaming performance is good within reasonable expectations. So what really sets this machine apart? First and foremost is the keyboard. Probably the most important thing for me, and I think for most people who really use their laptop for a lot of productivity. It's probably one of the best keyboards I've used outside of a Thinkpad. The track point is missing its center scroll button, but it's also on point. If it was replaceable, I would consider this a better laptop than the T14 Gen 2, which it shares generation of CPU with. And I would recommend it above that system. The layout is familiar to me because of my ZBook 14. It's not my favorite layout. I would have liked to have had arrow keys that were the same size. And I like how the whole page up, page down are next to the arrow keys. But again, that's personal preference, and this is a fairly acceptable layout. But as far as a pure typing experience, chef's kiss. It is really, really good. The keys are very consistent in how they feel. Travel is on the shorter side, like most newer laptops, but the force required to push them is just about perfect. Accuracy is really good, and there's no question if I've pressed the key or not. Unlike my Dell that I have, that typing in passwords is such a pain on that because it doesn't always register the keystroke. This one, never a question. I can type with 100% confidence when typing out those passwords. I also tend to transcribe things. You know, I have a piece of paper I'm reading off of and then typing into the computer, or another screen, you know, a document on another screen that I have to read while typing. And I can do that with very high accuracy on this keyboard without having to look at it. The last few Dells I've looked at, the keyboards have been so poor that I never trusted anything I typed out. Next is upgradability. I talked about the keyboard not being able to be upgraded easily or replaced easily. But with how upgradable the rest of the system is, I can't really complain too much. We have 2 RAM slots that support up to 64 gigs of RAM. I did upgrade this to 32 gigs. We have socketed Wi-Fi and available WAN slot that can probably have an SSD added to it for dual SSDs. The bottom cover is easily removed with captive screws. I know the battery is not hot swappable, but it's easily replaced, and it also supports USB-C charging. So with the right battery bank, you can charge the laptop on the go as well. It has, and you can see here, a separate charging jack, which is easily replaced as it's just a cable that plugs into the motherboard. So if you break it, you can replace it for about $9, free next day shipping from Amazon. What a concept. The most likely port to be damaged can be replaced inexpensively and quickly. I'm very happy with this laptop. It has a lot of value. The prices haven't started to climb on them yet. They are fully Windows 11 compatible. HP also has support for Linux, offering a selection of their systems with Linux out of the box. This one actually came from the refurbishers with Linux installed. The performance is good for the vast majority of users. They are upgradable with an awesome keyboard. If you're looking at buying a used ThinkPad of any ilk, I think the Elitebook series, specifically this 840 Gen 8, should be on your systems to cross-shop. I don't think you go wrong either way with either T14 Gen 2 or this, depending on your specific needs and the deal you're able to snag. And that's probably the most important thing when shopping, is not necessarily the specific model of laptop, but the deal that makes sense for you and the specs that make sense for you. This is a great general use laptop, but it may not have all the power that somebody who might do a bit more gaming or might be doing CAD work might need. So definitely consider that when shopping, but this I am very happy with and very surprised at just how good it is, especially again for that price. There are plenty of options on eBay when I was shopping this and getting ready for this video, and I would expect you to be able to find one for about $200 and start making offers on them, or find one that's going for auction and put in a little bid and try to get it. So if you look at the sold listings, a lot of them under that $200 price range. Anyways, thank you for watching. I hope some of you click on my affiliate link in this description to help support this channel, and I hope you have an amazing day.